Shane Beamer. We had, Paul, a young man from South Carolina on the show.
Dylan Stewart, yes.
Yep. He was – that was a struggle.
You can tell he's going to have some media training.
Somebody got
great.
– yeah.
Did you do the gun celebration? Or was that, am I thinking of somebody else?
Is that Kennard?
Yeah, I might have been Kyle Kennard. But he was really – like, once the microphone turned off, I talked to him for a couple minutes, and I was like, that
was Dylan Stewart. That was absolutely Dylan Stewart. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking in my head, like, no, this, like, when the microphone's on, you do this. But you can tell he's very shy.
Yeah, I got some comments from very loyal listeners and viewers of 365 Sports. And it was a struggle. But you know what? Him doing that and then doing another one, he has to be locked in. But it was good to see the young man. We did get him to talk a little bit before it was said and done. But Beamer. Shane Beamer, South Carolina, on faking injuries. A team that we played this season, it's amazing how many times they had an injury on defense after the opposing offense made a first down, an explosive play, and had some momentum. There's debate about how long should a player be out to avoid this being, which can be contagious. You kind of see it sometimes more weekends than others. What would be the proper way, knowing that somebody actually might have suffered a bone bruise and has to, goes down? What would be the proper way for a player who injured or not, faking or not?
I'll just tell you right now, you got 105 players on scholarship now. If you can't afford to have a guy sit out a series, don't have his ass fall down and fake it. So start using that depth, coaches, because I think they should be out for the rest of the series. I'm totally for that rule.
If you're wondering, yes, South Carolina did play Ole Miss this past season. So that's a very good chance that that's who he's talking about. But we saw that kind of throughout the SEC, I think, this past year, a little bit too much. And throughout college football, quite frankly, that's why it's become such a topic. And now will carry over the offseason and be, I think, one that we really drill down on. And I don't know what the answer to it is. The big question mark that throws everything for a loop is the quarterback. What if the quarterback gets hurt? You can't have him sit out in a series, especially if it's late in the game. Mm-hmm. So what kind of a determination do you make there? But it was very clear. I mean, there were guys that weren't even limping by the time they got to the sideline. In some of the games I saw this year, I mean, it was ridiculous. And Ole Miss was the one that really stood out because once you noticed it, you couldn't not notice it. And there were a couple of games pretty close together where I was just like, dude, this is insane. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think the quarterback piece is the part that you've got to solve completely to get to the end of this thing. But I'm for guys sitting out the series. I know there's downfalls of that, but I don't know how else you go about combating it, because if you don't punish them in some way, then why stop faking? So I don't know. Is a better decision to throw a 15-yard penalty? How are you going to do that? How would you explain that? Are you going to prove that he's hurt? So you can't do that?
Nope.
I don't know any other way to do it other than to, hey, this linebacker's getting up and he's limping and he's needed the trainers to come on the field. He's out the rest of the series. Yeah, that sucks, especially if he's your best linebacker and you need to get a stop to win the game. But, again, I don't know how else you do it. So if somebody's got a better idea, I'm all ears for it. But I do think something needs to be done about it. And this can't be just something that continues on in the next season and next season. And then, it's like all the other issues where you just never deal with them and they become more compounded over time. Because, yeah, it started to become too commonplace.
Like I said, you got 105 scholarship players now.
Yeah.
You got plenty of guys. Redshirting means very little now. Very, very little.
Right.
So if you're worried, look, Lane Kiffin can still have people fake injuries. He can just send in the guy to fake the injury that he doesn't worry about being out for the rest of the series. But you have 105, so go ahead. They can sit out for a series.
From the chat room, hard to determine between an injury and faking it. If you make a player sit out a series, then you risk guys playing injured. And if you want that, then stop saying we're concerned about players' health.
Why do you risk them playing injured?
Well, because they don't want to sit out a series.
Sit out a series. Okay.
And then
But I
Hey,
think
thanks
that, but
for the
I would
feedback.
think in that case, then like it's either going to be pretty obvious that a dude's like not able to play, and like you pull him and you go like, all right, the coach's job is to now say, all right, Dylan Stewart, like you clearly are trying to fight through this because you don't want to miss a series, but pal, you can't go, like you can't stand on your leg, like you got to get out of here. But yeah, that's the logical answer is like, well, what about if a guy is only dinged up for a play, he's legitimately like just needs to get checked out? Like again, there's not a perfect answer to it, so I think that's everybody's trying to spitball and figure out if there is a better way. But if you don't do something, then guys are just going to continue to do it, and then it becomes like I said, what are you going to throw a flag? Well, then how do you prove that?
Man, no.
Here's what I would also say to that, and the coaches need to be responsible for this. There are microcosmal instances of players playing like Jordan's flu game and Willis Reed and guys toughing it out, like Phillip Rivers playing a game with a torn ACL, that's all great. But also you have to make the determination of like what's best for the player, and is this guy really helping us, or am I trying to win one for the Gipper for no reason because I believe in toughness?
Well, the
tough
NFL,
guys,
the reason they got sued is because they had a lot of those guys playing.
Well, yeah, and so like, do you believe in tough guys and you push this fake tough guy narrative that winds up hurting you in the long run because you've got this?
Here's Paul. I agree. The problem is the guys are faking injuries.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's bad for the game.
So
it's bad for the game.
So that to me just is more reason to hold these coaches to account and make them kind of get rid of their old stupid tough guy narratives, or they're cheating of like, oh, well, this guy, we didn't want to put him in, like he didn't want to come out of the game, so he played. Like, all right, well, you're the adult in the room, dude. Like, tell him you're out for this series. That's your decision to fake the injury.
No, it needs to be out of the hands of the coaches. It needs to be a part of the
training staff.
The training staff and doctors. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it is most of the time. But like having a hamstring injury or you're out of fluid and you're cramping, that's still part of the training staff.
That's part of the strategy too, though. Like
absolutely.
You should have hydrated better, and like if you didn't, then that's your fault. We can't have anything be perfect, right? Like everything's going to have a flaw to it, everything. So I know we want to perfect every element of every aspect of every part of every game, and that's just not doable. So you're either going to sit out the series and you're legitimately hurt, but like, you know what? Who'll stop faking injuries? Guys who don't want to miss a series. Like they're not going to fake anymore. And for the guys who are legitimately hurt, like if it just so happens that it's a type of injury where you only need to miss a play, well, that's just very unfortunate. That's just bad luck that you would have to miss maybe an important series, but not every time a guy gets hurt is it going to be the last drive of the game with the team with the ball trying to score to win it, and you're on defense. Like, yeah, that's probably going to happen, but if it eliminates the 5 other times during the course of every Saturday that you're seeing guys like just fall halfway to the sideline because their team's defense isn't ready, well, then the rule will be doing its job. But there's going to be somebody affected. There's going to be some collateral damage to it, but I think you'd much rather eliminate the obvious poor acting at that a lot of times versus the more minute chances that a guy gets hurt and it's the last drive of the game with the game on the line type thing.
And there still might be some that fake it. And they're gone to slow the game down, the tempo down, to give a chance for the defense to get a breather.
But I think in that case, though, like if you're Lane Kiffin, you're trying to go around it. What are you going to put in some third string linebacker and then inform him like, hey, you go in there and we've got to stop the clock somehow. You fall down, like then that would be so obvious. I mean, it would rip the mask off a lot more than we already see past the mask already. But there's still a little bit of mystery to it of like, is that guy really hurt? But if you were to then have to try and get around that, I think it would be pretty clear what you're now attempting to do.
That's exactly right. And you might put a third stringer into their fake an injury after the play, and the guy gives up a big play because he's a third stringer for a reason. All right.
Well, I mean, then don't send in the guy to fake it in.
That's what I'm saying.
Again,
Yeah,
consequences are an important thing. Living a consequenceless life will.
You're coming up with words that
consequence-free life. Yeah, that's probably better.
Yeah,
it's not good for anybody. You got to have consequences.